She was barefoot on the stairs, arms crossed, face lit up by the blue light of her phone. Lily, 17, sharp-tongued, soft-spoken only when she wanted something. My stepdaughter, though I had stopped using that word out loud. It always sounded like a disclaimer, like a label that excused the lack of love behind her eyes. I had just reminded her to clean up after dinner. Nothing harsh, just a tired, quiet ask, as I had done 100 times before. And that's when she rolled her eyes, sighed like a bored customer waiting for service, and said it. Relax, you're not even permanent here. The words landed like a nail through glass. Not shouted, not dramatic, just cold. That's what made it worse. No emotion, no guilt, just a clean, clinical dismissal. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't teen attitude. It was a verdict. I stood there in the hallway, holding a grocery bag I hadn't even unpacked yet, the top folded down from the weight of the items. A box of cereal slipped from the edge and hit the floor with a hollow thud, rolling lazily toward the wall. But I didn't bend to pick it up. I couldn't move. Permanent. 6 years. 6 years of this house, this life, these routines. 6 years of waking up before everyone else to get the coffee going. 6 years of driving her to orthodontist appointments and recitals and school events she never thanked me for. 6 years of showing up when her biological father forgot her birthday for the 3rd time in a row. Or the 4th. I stopped counting after the 2nd. 6 years of paying, not just financially but emotionally. Paying in time, in attention, in patience, in swallowing every insult like communion, telling myself this was what stepfathers did. They absorbed. They endured. I tiled the bathroom she uses every morning. I painted the walls of her bedroom. Picked the shade myself after she couldn't decide. Dusty Plum. A name I now hate with the kind of quiet bitterness only a man like me could understand. I spent 2 weekends redoing it, sweat dripping down my back while she watched TikToks on the porch. I was the one who upgraded the HVAC so she wouldn't have to complain about the heat upstairs in the summer. The one who found her a therapist when she started skipping classes. Paid out of pocket, too. Insurance didn't cover adolescent mood disorder. Not that I was ever thanked for that. 6 years of making her future easier, smoother, safer. And that one sentence, it undid all of it. She didn't say it to be cruel. That's the part that shattered me. Cruelty would have been easier to excuse. But this wasn't said in malice. It was said in indifference. And indifference is more lethal than hate. It means you've already stopped being seen. You're not even permanent here. It wasn't a moment of rage. It was a mirror. A clear, unfiltered reflection of how she saw me. And the worst part? I believed her. Rachel was in the kitchen. She heard it too. I know she did. I saw her eyes flick up from her phone, then flick back down. That was her move. Silence. Always silence. A kind of complicity made of soft expressions and long pauses. Rachel is my wife. We've been married 6 years. I'm her second husband. The man who came in after the mess was made. She doesn't call it that, of course. She calls it starting over. That's what she said when we moved into this house outside Denver, in that quiet neighborhood with trees that drop leaves so perfect it looks staged in autumn. A place where people smile when they pass you on the street, where every garage hides a man trying to fix something that doesn't want to be fixed. I was that man. For 6 years, I've been fixing a family that doesn't want to be fixed. Rachel has 2 kids, Lily, and a son, Theo, who's younger and quieter but no less distant. He stays in his room most nights. When he speaks to me, it's polite, flat, like customer service at a store where they already know you're going to return what you bought. They don't hate me. That's the poison in it. Hatred, at least, has weight. It acknowledges your presence. But me, I'm tolerated. Like a mild rash, an extra chair, an afterthought. You see, in the beginning, I didn't mind. I told myself it would take time. Kids need time to adjust, right? Especially when their father is still in the picture. Barely, but just enough to haunt the edges. They saw him on weekends sometimes, or they were supposed to. But half the time he canceled last minute. Too tired, too busy, too something. Still, they adored him. Always had. even when he disappointed them. Especially when he disappointed them. There's something magnetic about a father who stays just out of reach. Keeps the myth intact. The myth that he would be there if only he could. And me? I was always there. Every holiday. Every sick day. Every scraped knee. Every school fundraiser and every forgotten lunch. But consistency is never sexy. It's invisible. I was the guy behind the curtain pulling the levers. The guy who funded all the tomorrows, education, camps, electronics, insurance, birthdays, family trips. I paid for Lily's summer music camp the year she changed her mind and decided not to go. Paid the cancellation fee, too. She never said a word about it. I paid for the roof over their heads and the cars they learned to drive in. For the internet that ran their games and the streaming services they watched instead of talking to me. I paid. Quietly. Reliably. I thought I was building something. A future. I thought if I laid enough bricks, they'd let me through the door eventually. But I was wrong. I wasn't building a home. I was furnishing someone else's. I was the guy financing their comfort. Not their love. Not their respect. Just their convenience. And in that moment on the stairs, when Lily said what she said and walked past me like I was a lamp in the hallway, I understood something I had buried for years. I was temporary. Not because of a divorce. Not because of paperwork. But because they never invited me into permanence. They never let me in. They just let me pay. That night I sat alone in the garage. I didn't turn on the lights. Just sat there in the dark with the beer I had been saving for the weekend. The kind with the dark label and the heavy taste. The kind that sits in your gut like a stone. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't make a scene. I listened. I listened to the silence of a house I helped build but was never allowed to own. I listened to the laughter drifting down from Lily's room. Some TV show with a canned laugh track. I listened to Rachel move around the kitchen, clinking dishes like nothing had happened. That was the moment I stopped lying to myself. About who I was. About who they saw me as. I was a placeholder. A credit line. A tool. A comfort they didn't have to thank. A presence they could ignore because they knew I wouldn't leave. Because I hadn't. Not yet. But that sentence, that soft, offhand, off-guard sentence, it was the scalpel that cut the last nerve. You're not even permanent here. She meant it. And for the first time, I heard it. And for the first time, I believed it. I didn't argue. I didn't sit her down and ask, "What did you mean by that?" I didn't ask Rachel to explain it away, soften it with adult logic or motherly translation. I didn't plead to be seen differently, to be seen at all. I took her words literally. Relax, you're not even permanent here. Not poetic. Not metaphorical. Just logistical. A status update from a teenager who knew what permanence looked like, and knew I didn't fit. So I accepted it. Not emotionally. Not philosophically. Financially. Because if I wasn't permanent, if I wasn't part of their long-term architecture, then I had no reason to keep financing their foundation. That night, after Rachel went to bed, I stayed in my office with the door half closed, the house quiet around me. I sat at the desk I assembled myself, no help of course, and opened the spreadsheet I swore I'd only ever look at quarterly. The one labeled Family Futures. Everything was there. The map of their tomorrows. Lily's 529 college account. Her Roth IRA that I started when she turned 16. The summer STEM program she applied for in Colorado Springs. Prepaid enrollment fee, early bird discount, due in 6 days. Monthly subscription for SAT tutoring. Auto draft from my checking account. Her digital art course on Skillshare. Her new laptop, still on its payment plan. Her medical insurance supplement for when she aged out of the pediatric plan next spring. It was all in my name. Every document. Every bank line. Every automatic draft had my fingerprint on it. Not hers, not her mother's, and certainly not the ghost of a father who showed up once a year with a gift and a smile and no responsibility. And in that quiet, under the blue light of my monitor, I made the most peaceful decision of my life. I was done building futures for people who didn't plan on including me in them. No speeches. No warnings. Just alignment. That's all it was, alignment between their words and my actions. The first thing I did was cancel the auto-transfer into Lily's college account. I left the money sitting in the savings buffer. Didn't touch it. Didn't repurpose it. I just stopped feeding it. The digital confirmation came with a chirp, like a toaster letting me know the bread was no longer toasting. Next was the summer program. I logged in, found the cancellation window still open. No refund, but that wasn't the point. I just didn't want my name tied to it. Didn't want her packing her bags with my contribution stitched invisibly into the fabric. Cancelled. Deleted the receipt. Then came the SAT tutoring. $119 per month. Gone in less than 2 clicks. Her Skillshare account, the one she hadn't used in 3 weeks, paused indefinitely. Her prepaid trip to Washington, D.C. The one Rachel and I had talked about months ago over wine, the one we thought might help Lily build her college essay material, removed. It was on a payment plan. I had only made the deposit. I called the agency and told them we'd be withdrawing. No, I didn't need to give a reason. Yes, I understood the deposit was non-refundable. That was fine. It was never about the money. It was about the mirror she held up, and the man I saw in it. By the time the clock hit 1:38 a.m., the page looked different. My spreadsheet, once bursting with scheduled drafts and long-term investments, looked hollow, like a retirement plan emptied overnight. It wasn't revenge. It was restraint. I didn't touch the basics. I still covered the mortgage, the food, the utilities, the insurance. I still kept the lights on. I didn't cancel her cell phone or cut the Wi-Fi. This wasn't punishment. This was clarity. I wasn't sabotaging her future. I was simply removing myself from the narrative. I was stepping out of a story I had been funding, but never writing. When I finished, I sat back and stared at the numbers. They looked lighter, honest, like they finally matched the role I'd been assigned. Temporary. A temporary man doesn't build permanent scaffolding. A temporary man doesn't throw college funds into a void hoping to be loved on the other side. A temporary man pays for dinner, not the degree. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time. The house was silent, like it was waiting, like it sensed something had shifted. Not loudly, not violently, just completely. The next morning, everything looked the same. Lily came down late, grabbed her bag, muttered something about needing a ride to school. I gave her the keys. She didn't thank me. Rachel asked if I wanted coffee. I said no. We all moved like nothing had changed. But it had. I watched Lily scroll on her phone during breakfast. I wondered if she had even registered the things that were now missing. I doubted it. Most of these futures were invisible to her. Quiet gifts she'd never see until they bloomed. That was the tragedy of men like me. We plant gardens we're never invited to sit in. But they'd notice soon enough. When the next tutoring invoice failed. When the summer program emailed a cancellation notice. When the Washington trip coordinator texted Rachel, asking why the next installment never arrived. They'd notice. Slowly. Like a slow leak in a tire you don't feel until the car starts pulling. But I wouldn't explain. Because that's what they wanted, right? No permanence. No future. Just comfort, today, now, immediate and entitled. So I gave them what they wanted. No more tomorrows. Just today. Rachel didn't say anything that week. I don't know if she noticed the budget changes, probably not. She never looked too closely. Trusted me with it like most wives trust their husbands to handle the invisible things. It was only visible when it stopped working. Lily came home 2 days later with a flyer in her hand. Something about senior photos, yearbook deadlines, graduation gowns. She left it on the kitchen counter. I didn't touch it. That was Thursday. By Sunday, I had finished rebalancing the household budget. You wouldn't believe how much future costs once you subtract it from your life. The numbers softened. The monthly forecast looked gentler, like the air had cleared after a long storm. There was more room to breathe. I wasn't angry. That's important to understand. I wasn't angry. I was just done subsidizing my own erasure. You don't get to call someone temporary and still expect permanent contributions. That's not family. That's a transaction. And I'm not a bank. The quiet part of me, the part that still believed, still hoped, whispered, she didn't mean it. Maybe it was a slip, a throwaway sentence, a shield, a flex, a defense mechanism in a house where teenagers stretch their identities by cutting the people around them. But the man in me, the man who has carried this family for 6 years, he knew better. That wasn't a mistake. That was a confession. And I finally stopped pretending otherwise. Started small. A missing email. A failed transaction. Rachel was at the sink rinsing vegetables, humming something from the radio. Lily sat on the couch with her laptop, cross-legged, her face twisted in concentration. "Did the confirmation come through?" she asked, not looking up. Rachel frowned. "For what?" "The summer program. They said it would finalize this week." Rachel dried her hands and checked her phone, tapping through her inbox. "That's odd," she murmured. "They usually send something right away." I sipped my coffee, eyes on the newspaper. I didn't speak. Lily shrugged and turned her attention back to her screen. A moment later, her voice rose. "It says payment declined. Why would it say that?" Rachel looked up. "What?" "Yeah. The site says there was an error processing the next payment. Do we need to update something?" Rachel's head turned toward me. Just a glance. A flicker of a question. I met her eyes and answered calmly. "I stopped investing in plans where I've been told I don't belong." The silence that followed wasn't casual. It wasn't the kind of silence that settles during small arguments or awkward dinners. This was deeper, more surgical, like the house itself had inhaled and held its breath. Lily stared at me. "What?" I folded the newspaper. "You said I'm not permanent here, so I took myself out of the permanent budget." Rachel's hands went still. The towel she held slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft, wet sound. Lily's mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. "I didn't mean it like that." I raised an eyebrow. "How did you mean it?" She didn't answer. That was the beginning. Over the next few days, the holes started to show. Her Skillshare account locked her out. The SAT tutor's automated reminder email never got a response because it bounced back. The Washington trip coordinator emailed Rachel directly, asking if there was a problem with the payment method on file. I heard her on the phone in the laundry room, trying to sound composed. "Yes, I'm not sure what happened. No, my husband usually. Yes, I'll speak to him." I was in the hallway. I heard every word. She didn't ask me that night. Not directly. But she moved differently. Quieter. She kept glancing at me like she was working up the nerve. I didn't offer her a shortcut. Let the silence do its job. Lily's mood shifted, too. Not drastically, not yet. But the edges frayed. Her tone got sharper. She asked fewer questions. She spent more time in her room. I caught her reading her bank app at the dinner table, her brow furrowed. Eventually, she cracked. "What's going on with my accounts?" she asked on a Thursday night. "Why is everything shutting down?" I looked up from my plate. Rachel was mid-bite. She froze, fork still in her mouth. I set down my glass. "Because you made it clear I'm not your father. And I stopped paying for the things a father pays for." Her voice rose, sharp and defensive. "You're being petty." "No," I said. "I'm being precise." She blinked. "It was one sentence. I didn't mean." "You meant it enough to say it." Rachel spoke then. "Evan." "No," I said, looking at her. "You were there. You heard her. You didn't say anything. Not then. Not for days. Not until the money stopped." She looked down at her plate. And there it was. The shift. It didn't happen all at once. It was slow, subtle, like gravity changing angles. Lily started noticing just how expensive tomorrow really is. Rachel realized just how much I'd been covering. Quietly, consistently, without applause. The mask slipped. Lily stopped asking for extras. No more casual mentions of upgrades or events. She started calculating, choosing her words with care. She'd come into the kitchen and hover, awkwardly, asking how my day was. It always sounded rehearsed. Rachel shifted even more. She started checking the budget herself. She began asking questions, softly, with too much caution. Did we ever finish paying for her cap and gown? Is the car insurance still set to autodraft? Are we still covering her violin rental? I didn't get angry. I didn't rub their faces in it. That's what made it worse. I just stayed quiet, honest, aligned. I didn't respond to words anymore, only to actions. One night, Rachel came to bed later than usual. She lay there, her back to me, her breathing heavy and anxious. After a long pause, she whispered, "I should have said something." I didn't respond. She turned toward me. She was out of line. I know. I should have corrected it. I didn't want to start something. You didn't want to upset the balance, I said flatly. Yes. I turned my head to look at her in the dark. And now you've learned we never had one. She didn't reply. That was the deepest truth. There had never been balance. Only pretense. Only me overextending. Only them taking with silence as the receipt. You'd be amazed how quickly tone changes when the funding stops. Lily's defiance cooled. She stopped rolling her eyes, started speaking with more care. She'd peek into my office, hover in the doorway. I could feel the questions forming behind her teeth, but she never quite asked them. Instead, she defaulted to small talk. Do you want me to unload the dishwasher? I fed the dog already. I think the tires on the Civic are low. I let her speak. I let her try, but I didn't reward it. Not yet. Respect isn't about tasks. It's about truth. And we hadn't touched truth yet. Rachel tried harder. She cooked more, made small talk at dinner, asked about my work. But beneath her voice was fear. Not of me, of consequence. Of the gap opening beneath her daughter's feet. One night she asked, carefully, if she apologized, really apologized, would you turn things back on? I set my glass down. If she understood what it meant to say what she said, not just to me but about me, then maybe. But I won't fund respect into existence anymore. She has to build that herself. Rachel nodded, but I saw the hesitation. She was hoping for a shortcut. There are no shortcuts left. That week, I overheard Lily talking to a friend on speakerphone. She didn't know I was in the garage. She's freaking out because everything's getting canceled. I don't know what happened. I think my stepdad's punishing me or something. I don't know. My mom says he's mad, but he hasn't yelled or anything. He's just different. Her friend asked something I couldn't hear. Lily's voice came quieter. No, he doesn't treat me mean. It's just I don't exist to him anymore. That was the first honest sentence she'd spoken in weeks. Because it wasn't about punishment. It was about presence. I had withdrawn mine. And in that absence, she felt the weight of what I used to carry. The next few days passed slowly. Rachel watched me like a fragile hinge, afraid to push too hard. Lily floated in and out of rooms, quieter now, less entitled, more alert. I didn't change a thing. The new equilibrium was not built on tension. It was built on truth. And they were finally seeing it. I didn't do this out of revenge. Revenge requires fire, emotion, the kind of anger that blinds you. What I felt wasn't fire, it was ice. Clear, clean, cold enough to burn from the inside out. What I did, every cut, every cancellation, every withheld convenience, wasn't spite. It was alignment. You don't get to call someone temporary and still expect permanent contributions. That's not how families work. That's not how respect works. That's not how I work. Lily had spoken her truth. Rachel had let it stand. And I had finally acted like someone who believed them. You see, the moment you recognize you're unwanted, everything else becomes noise. Every meal you cook, every ride you offer, every dollar you spend, it all starts to feel like a bribe. A tax you pay to exist in a house where your presence is barely tolerated. And I had paid long enough. So I stopped. The days after that were strange, quiet in a different way. Not the silence of a home at peace, but the silence of something slowly collapsing. Lily moved carefully now. Not fearful, not yet, but aware. Like someone walking across a frozen lake, uncertain where the next crack might come. She'd linger near me, ask how work was, offer to make tea. Once, she even brought me a bowl of strawberries without being asked. She set it on my desk and said, "You like these, right?" I didn't touch them. She left the room quietly. Rachel tried more obvious things. She began suggesting family dinners, movie nights. She asked if I wanted to join them when they watched something, a show I'd never been invited to before. I declined, politely, because what they were offering now wasn't reconciliation. It was negotiation. They weren't inviting me in. They were bargaining for what I used to give. I could feel it in Rachel's eyes. Not guilt, just calculation, fear. She had misjudged the equation, thought she could remain neutral, thought silence would cost her nothing. But silence, I've learned, is always a choice. And every choice has a bill attached. Came due on a Wednesday. Lily got a call. I knew from the way she answered, panicked, that it was about the Washington trip. She stepped outside. I heard her pacing on the porch, her voice tight with panic. "I don't understand. My mom said we'd paid already." Pause. "No, I don't know why it says declined." Another pause. "Is there any way to reapply for aid? Or no, I don't know what the alternate payment options are." She came back in with tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything to me, just climbed the stairs and closed her door gently. No slamming, no drama. Rachel asked me that night, softly, "Is there any way we could reinstate that payment?" I looked at her. I thought I wasn't permanent. Her lips parted. She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. She had heard it too. She had let it pass. "I didn't say it," she whispered. "No," I said. "You just agreed with it." Quietly. She nodded. She didn't cry, but her face changed. Something behind her eyes shifted. Realization, maybe, or grief for the version of me she never thought would leave. That weekend, Lily knocked on my office door. She hadn't done that in months. She stood there with her hands folded in front of her. She didn't look like the girl who mocked me from the stairs. She looked smaller now, younger, human. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I nodded. She hesitated. "I didn't mean what I said." I raised my hand. "Stop. Don't apologize to fix the consequences. Apologize because you understand them." She blinked. Her mouth trembled, but no more words came. She left the room. I didn't chase her, because this was the moment I had waited 6 years for. Not the apology, not the tears, the silence. The silence where she finally had to sit in what she had built. They all did. The next week, Rachel asked if I would consider reactivating the college savings account. "It's just sitting there," she said. "It seems wasteful." I shook my head. "I'll redirect it." "To what?" "My future." She blinked. "You mean ours?" "No," I said. "Mine." And that was when it hit her. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't sulking. I was gone. Still in the house, still paying the bills, still eating dinner. But gone. Emotionally, mentally, permanently. I started setting up my own accounts. Redirected the excess to my retirement. Booked a solo trip for fall hiking, no cell service. Didn't ask for approval. Just did it. Lily didn't bring up school again. Didn't ask for help. Rachel grew quieter. The house felt like it was holding its breath. And I started to sleep better. Isn't that strange? After all the noise, all the effort, all the years of bending and accommodating and funding futures that didn't include me, I finally felt peace. Because I was no longer building a home. I was just renting space. I knew the ending had already written itself. This was just the part where everyone pretended not to read ahead. Lily would graduate. Or maybe she wouldn't. Maybe the cracks would grow faster than the scaffolding could hold. Maybe she'd blame me, call me selfish, paint me as the villain in stories she tells her friends. Maybe she'd call her father and cry. He wouldn't answer. Rachel would try to patch it. Stitch over the damage with long dinners and awkward family nights. But the fabric was torn. And torn fabric doesn't become new again. It becomes a reminder. I gave 6 years. 6 years of funding dreams, pretending to be a father without ever being treated like one. 6 years of standing in doorways waiting to be invited. Of paying bills I never got credit for. Of being the engine in a car that never acknowledged the ride. Now I was the brake. They could coast on what was left, but the road ahead was theirs to build. Not mine. Not anymore. So this is where it ends. Not in a fight. Not in a loud, dramatic exit. Just in truth. I was never permanent. So I stopped acting like I was. And now I ask you, whoever's still listening, was I wrong? Was I cruel to match their silence with my own? To cut off the future they assumed I would finance, even while they erased me in the present? Would you have kept giving? Would you have endured it? Tell me, if you had been told you're not part of the family, would you still pay the price to belong? Or would you finally put the checkbook down and walk away? Because that's what I did. And for the first time in years, I don't regret a single step.